Marcus Webb woke to silence on platform Echo 7. 14 years on North Sea rigs taught him platforms are never quiet. Every bunk was empty. Coffee steamed. The logbook showed an evacuation order in his handwriting at 3 a.m. He couldn't remember writing it. 120 miles from shore, no radio, 47 crew vanished. When he found the sealed report in the backup servers, he understood why someone drugged him and made him forget. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Marcus's alarm never went off. That was the first wrong thing. He'd set it for 6 a.m. every morning for the past 3 months on Echo 7, and his body knew the rhythm. Wake up, shower in 90 seconds, dress in 2 minutes, hit the galley by 6:15 for coffee and whatever breakfast the cook had ready. But when he opened his eyes, pale gray light filtered through the porthole. His watch read 7:15. He sat up fast, too fast. His head pounded like someone had taken a wrench to his skull, and his mouth tasted like copper and something chemical he couldn't place. The room spun for 3 seconds before settling. Marcus pressed his palm against his forehead and waited for the dizziness to pass. The silence registered slowly. No engine hum vibrating through the walls. No voices in the corridor. No boots on metal deck plates. No morning announcements over the PA system. 14 years on platforms taught you to sleep through noise, but silence. Silence woke you up faster than any alarm. He pulled on his work pants and boots, didn't bother with a shirt, stepped into the corridor and called out, "Rodriguez, Jenkins, anyone running late?" His voice echoed back. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, but nothing else made a sound. Marcus walked faster, calling names. "Patterson, Chen, where the hell is everyone?" The crew quarters held 47 bunks. He checked 6 rooms. Every bunk was empty, sheets thrown back like people had gotten up in a hurry. But their personal items remained. Jenkins's reading glasses sat on his nightstand. Patterson's family photos were still taped to the wall above his bed. Rodriguez's lucky poker chip sat on his dresser where it always did. Marcus moved to the galley. The smell of coffee hit him first, strong and fresh. A pot sat on the burner, still warm to the touch. 3 mugs on the table, steam rising from 2 of them. A plate of eggs and bacon on the counter, half eaten. Silverware scattered across the table like people had stood up mid-meal. He touched one of the mugs. Hot. Left within the last 20 minutes, maybe 30. "This doesn't make sense," he said to the empty room. "Where did you all go?" His boots echoed on the metal floor as he moved through the platform, past the rec room where someone had left a card game half finished, past the equipment room where a tool belt hung on its hook, tools scattered on the workbench, past the medical bay where the computer screen glowed with patient records still open. In the corridor outside the control room, he found the first real evidence something was wrong. Someone's boots sat in the middle of the hallway, laces still tied, like whoever wore them had stepped out and vanished. Marcus picked up one boot, size 11, heavy-duty Wolverines with steel toes. Patterson wore size 11 Wolverines. He set the boot down carefully and pushed open the control room door. All the monitors glowed with normal readings. Pressure stable, temperature stable. No alarms, no warnings, no emergencies. The radio sat on its rack, power indicator showing green. Marcus picked up the handset and pressed transmit. Platform Echo 7 to any vessel. Platform Echo 7 to any vessel. Requesting immediate contact. Over. Static. He tried again. Nothing. He checked the frequency settings. Correct. He checked the power supply. Full. The radio worked perfectly. Nobody was answering because nobody could hear him. Marcus set down the handset and moved to the logbook. Standard operating procedure required every shift change, every incident, every maintenance action to be recorded in the physical log. Digital systems failed. Computers crashed. But pen and paper lasted forever, and maritime law required it. He flipped to the last entry. His stomach dropped. 0307 hours, emergency evacuation ordered. Chemical leak detected, level 3. All personnel to lifeboats. Captain Morrison authorized. M. Webb. His handwriting, definitely his handwriting. The way he formed the capital M with a slight curl at the end. The way his lowercase e's leaned left. the specific pressure he applied with a pen that made the letters darker at the beginning of each word. Marcus stared at his right hand. A small ink stain marked his index finger, right where it would be if he'd gripped a pen for several minutes. He read the entry again. Chemical leak. Level 3. That meant immediate evacuation, no exceptions. But he didn't remember writing this. He didn't remember a chemical leak. He didn't remember anything after 11 p.m. when he'd finished replacing a hydraulic coupling in the engine bay. Marcus checked the automated system logs on the computer. Every sensor on the platform fed data into the central system 24 hours a day. Gas detection sensors, pressure sensors, temperature monitors. He pulled up the logs from midnight to 7 a.m. All readings normal. No chemical leaks, no pressure drops, no temperature spikes, no alerts, no alarms. Nothing that would trigger a level 3 evacuation. He scrolled through the entries again, slower this time. At 03:05 hours, the main alarm system showed a manual override. Someone had disabled the automated alerts. At 03:06 hours, the PA system activated. Someone had used it to make an announcement. At 03:07 hours, the emergency beacon went offline, also manually disabled. Marcus pulled up the security camera footage. Echo 7 had 12 cameras covering key areas: control room, galley, engine bay, helipad, 4 lifeboat stations, and 3 corridor junctions. He started the playback at 300 hours and watched himself appear on the control room camera at 03:02. On screen, he moved with purpose, walked to the alarm panel, entered the override code, disabled the automated alerts, moved to the PA system. His lips moved, but there was no audio recording. Then he walked to the logbook and wrote the entry. His movements were smooth, mechanical, like he was following a script. Marcus touched his neck absently and felt something, a small puncture mark just below his left ear, tender to the touch. He walked to the medical bay and found a mirror. The mark was tiny, barely visible, a needle injection site, fresh, less than 12 hours old. "Someone drugged me," he said aloud. "Someone drugged me and made me evacuate the platform. But why? And who? And where were they now?" He returned to the control room and checked the personnel logs. The system tracked everyone who entered or exited the platform via helicopter or supply boat. The last entry showed a supply boat departure at 1800 hours yesterday. No arrivals, no departures since then, except the lifeboats. Marcus grabbed his jacket from his quarters and headed for the deck. The North Sea wind hit him the moment he stepped outside, cold and sharp enough to make his eyes water. Gray waves stretched to the horizon in every direction. No ships, no helicopters, no help coming. Echo 7 had 4 lifeboat stations, one on each corner of the platform. He walked to the nearest one and found exactly what he expected. Empty. The David arm hung over the water with nothing attached. The release mechanism showed recent activation. The launch log, mounted in a weatherproof case beside each station, confirmed it. Lifeboat 1 launched at 33 p.m. hours. Signed by Rodriguez. Marcus moved to the second station. Same story. Lifeboat 2 launched at 323 hours. Signed by Patterson. The third station showed Lifeboat 3 gone at 351 hours. Signed by Chen. The fourth station showed Lifeboat 4 launched at 0345 hours. Signed by Morrison. He studied the signatures. They looked right at first glance, but something felt off. The letters were too uniform, too perfect. Rodriguez had messy handwriting, always had. Patterson's signature included a sharp upward stroke on the final N that wasn't there. These signatures were traced or copied, not written naturally. Marcus checked the emergency beacon mounted near Lifeboat Station 1. The device should automatically activate when any lifeboat launched, sending a distress signal with the platform's coordinates. Someone had removed the battery. He found it sitting on the deck 3 feet away, deliberately disconnected. The radio mast rose from the platform's highest point, 100 feet above the deck. Marcus climbed the external ladder, ignoring the height and the wind. Halfway up, he found the problem. Someone had cut the main antenna cable, not damaged by weather or wear. Cut. Clean slice through the insulated copper wire. He could splice it back together, but he'd need tools and time. At the top of the mast, he found something else. His jacket. His backup work jacket with his name stitched on the chest. He definitely hadn't climbed up here wearing it. Marcus checked the pockets and found a key card he'd never seen before. Plain white plastic with a magnetic strip and 3 words printed in small black letters. Archive B7. He'd worked on Echo 7 for 3 months and never heard of Archive B7. The platform had 3 main levels above water and 2 below. Standard designation was A deck through E deck. B deck held crew quarters and the galley, but B7 has a specific room number. That didn't exist in any schematic he'd seen. Marcus pocketed the key card and started his descent. The wind had picked up, gusting hard enough to make the ladder sway. His fingers were numb by the time he reached the deck. He checked the weather station mounted near the helipad. Current conditions: wind 25 knots, seas 12 feet, temperature 42 degrees. Forecast: deteriorating, storm system moving in from the northwest, expected arrival, 18 hours, 120 miles from the nearest mainland. No working radio, no lifeboats, no crew. A storm coming, and someone had gone to considerable trouble to make sure he was alone out here. Marcus went back inside and descended 3 levels to B deck. He'd walked these corridors 100 times doing maintenance rounds. Crew quarters, galley, rec room, storage lockers. Nothing called Archive B7. But the key card had to open something. He moved methodically, checking every door. B1 through B6 were crew quarters. B8 through B12 were storage. B7 should have been between storage locker B6 and crew quarters B8, but that section of corridor held only a blank wall, painted the same industrial gray as everything else. Marcus ran his hand along the wall. Solid metal. He knocked with his knuckles. Different sound. Hollow behind the paint. He stepped back and looked closer. The paint job was newer here, less worn than the surrounding areas. Someone had covered something. He pulled out a pocket knife and scraped at the edge where wall met floor. Paint flaked away, revealing a seam, a door seam. Marcus traced it with the blade. Standard hatch size, 30 inches wide, 72 inches tall. Completely painted over to match the wall. The keycard slot took him 10 minutes to find. It was mounted low, 8 inches above the floor, hidden behind a panel that looked like part of the wall trim. Marcus swiped the card. A mechanical click echoed through the corridor. The hidden door popped open half an inch. He pulled it wide. Darkness beyond. His flashlight beam revealed a narrow stairwell leading down. Metal steps, no handrail, disappearing into the lower levels. The air that drifted up smelled different, recycled and cold, like it was coming from a climate-controlled space. Marcus descended. 20 steps down, then a landing. 20 more steps. Another landing. The stairwell ended at a third door, this one marked with a simple placard. Archive, authorized personnel only. The keycard worked again. This door opened into a room the size of a small warehouse. Climate-controlled, exactly as he'd guessed. The temperature sat at a steady 65 degrees. Rows of filing cabinets lined one wall. A computer server stood in the corner, lights blinking in sequence. 3 desks held monitors and keyboards. Everything was powered on, humming quietly. Marcus approached the nearest filing cabinet and pulled open the top drawer. Manila folders, organized alphabetically. He grabbed one at random. Project Meridian, Phase 1 Trials. He opened it and started reading. The first page was a corporate memo dated 8 months ago. From Dr. Sarah Chen, Chief Scientific Officer, to Captain Morrison, Platform Manager. Subject: Approval for experimental drilling operations in Sector 7 Alpha. Attached geological surveys showed they'd been drilling into an unusual formation beneath the seafloor. Not oil, not natural gas. Something else. Marcus flipped to the next page. Sample analysis results. They'd extracted organic material from the formation 3 months ago. Brown viscous fluid with unusual properties. The technical language was dense, but one phrase stood out. Demonstrates significant enhancement of neuroplasticity and behavioral suggestibility in preliminary tests. He set down that folder and grabbed another. Medical logs, crew observations. Inside were individual files for every person on the platform, including him. His file was thick, 20 pages at least. He flipped it open and found cognitive test results dated every 2 weeks for the past 3 months. The first page of Marcus's file showed his baseline cognitive assessment from 3 months ago when he'd arrived on Echo 7. IQ score 142, reaction time 0.3 seconds, memory retention 94%. Problem-solving capability rated exceptional. The evaluator had noted, subject demonstrates high stress tolerance and technical expertise. Excellent candidate. Candidate for what? The next pages tracked his performance over time. Week 2, IQ 141, reaction time 0.31 seconds, memory retention 92%. Week 4, IQ 140, reaction time 0.32 seconds, memory retention 90%. The scores dropped gradually but consistently. Someone had been monitoring his cognitive decline. But one metric went up, behavioral compliance. Week 2, 48%. Week 4, 92%. Week 8, 218%. Week 12, 340%. A handwritten note in the margin read, enhanced suggestibility confirmed. Subject responds to verbal commands with minimal resistance. Ideal for Phase 4 isolation trial. Marcus set down the file and walked to the computer server. The main monitor displayed a surveillance feed grid, 12 camera angles covering the platform. He recognized the views: control room, galley, engine bay. The same cameras he'd checked earlier, but these feeds included audio recordings. He pulled up the footage from last night and started at 11 p.m. There he was in the engine bay, replacing the hydraulic coupling like he remembered. At 11:17 p.m., the internal phone on the wall rang. Marcus watched himself answer it. His expression changed, went blank. He set down his tools and walked toward the medical bay. The medical bay camera showed him entering at 11:23 p.m. Then the footage corrupted. Solid black screen for 3 hours and 25 minutes. When it resumed at 2:48 a.m., Marcus was exiting the medical bay. His movements were different, stiff, mechanical, like someone had wound him up and pointed him in a direction. He watched himself walk to the control room, disable the alarms, write the logbook entry. His face showed no emotion, no thought, just action. At 3 a.m., he activated the PA system. The audio came through clear. Attention all personnel. This is Webb. Emergency evacuation ordered. Chemical leak detected in drilling sector. Level 3 protocol. All crew to lifeboat stations immediately. This is not a drill. His voice, his words, but he didn't remember saying them. Marcus touched the injection mark on his neck and understood. They drugged him with their compound, made him compliant, used him to evacuate the crew so they'd have a clean test environment. The footage continued. He watched himself assist crew members to the lifeboats between 3:15 and 3:45 a.m. Watched himself disable the emergency beacon at 4:10 a.m. Watched himself climb the radio mast and cut the antenna cable at 4:30 a.m. Then return to his quarters and sleep. Marcus sat down hard in the desk chair. They'd turned him into a puppet, made him clear the platform, made him destroy the communications, made him forget all of it, and now he was alone, exactly as they'd planned. Marcus forced himself to focus. Anger wouldn't help him survive. He needed information. He pulled up more files on the computer and started reading fast. Project Meridian had 4 phases. Phase 1, extract and analyze the compound. Complete. Phase 2, test on small mammal subjects. Complete. Phase 3, low-dose exposure trials on crew members through modified air filtration. Complete. Results, enhanced behavioral compliance, reduced resistance to authority, temporary memory disruption. Phase 4, isolation trial, single subject, extended observation. Purpose, determine compound stability and subject self-sufficiency over 48 hours. Marcus was Phase 4. He found the technical specifications. The platform's air filtration system had been modified 6 months ago during routine maintenance. New filters installed throughout crew quarters, galley, and common areas. Each filter contained trace amounts of the compound, not enough to cause obvious symptoms, just enough to make everyone a little more compliant, a little more suggestible, a little less likely to question orders. The injection he'd received last night was different. Concentrated dose, 30 milligrams delivered directly into the bloodstream, enough to make him completely controllable for approximately 4 hours. The files called it chemical compliance induction. A timeline document showed the full plan. 0300 hours, administer concentrated dose to subject Webb. 0315, 0345 hours, supervised evacuation of all personnel via lifeboats. 0400, 0430 hours, subject Webb disables communications and emergency systems. 0430, 0600 hours, compound metabolizes, subject sleeps. 0600, 1800 hours, observation period begins. Subject should wake with no memory of previous 4 hours. The extraction helicopter was scheduled to arrive in 18 hours. They'd collect him along with 48 hours of observational data, blood samples, cognitive tests, behavioral analysis. Then they'd dose him again, return him to the mainland, and tell him he'd been part of a routine medical evacuation due to equipment failure. Marcus opened another file, corporate memos between Dr. Chen and someone named William Bradford at headquarters. The correspondence was blunt: military applications, workforce management, interrogation enhancement. They were developing a weapon that could turn anyone into a compliant tool with a simple injection. And they'd tested it on him, on Rodriguez, on Patterson, on 47 people who thought they were just working an oil rig. He found a schematic of the drilling site. They'd punched down through 3,000 feet of seafloor into a geological pocket that shouldn't exist. Ancient organic material compressed under extreme pressure for millions of years. The compound had unique molecular properties that affected neurotransmitter production in the human brain, specifically dopamine and serotonin regulation. Marcus photographed everything with his personal phone: documents, computer screens, file folders, every piece of evidence he could capture. His phone wasn't connected to the platform's network. They couldn't wipe it remotely. If he got off this rig alive, he'd have proof. A notation at the bottom of one document caught his eye: compound half-life in human tissue, 24-36 hours. Effects diminished significantly after initial metabolism. Repeated exposure required for sustained compliance. That meant he'd been breathing trace amounts for 3 months. That meant everyone on this platform had been compromised. And that meant the injection from last night was starting to wear off. This story takes time to craft. If you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Marcus spent the next hour gathering evidence. He found 3 USB drives in a desk drawer and copied every file from the server. Medical logs, test results, corporate correspondence, video footage, personnel files, everything. He made 3 copies and hid 2 of them in different locations. One in the engine bay behind a coolant pump. One in the galley taped under the industrial refrigerator. The third stayed in his pocket. The medical bay held refrigerated storage for samples. Marcus found what he was looking for in the back of the unit: 12 vials of brown viscous fluid labeled NP7. Neural plasticity compound, batch 7. He photographed the vials in place, then took 3 and wrapped them carefully in foam padding from a first aid kit. These went into a waterproof pouch that he strapped to his chest under his shirt. His phone was at 62% battery. He'd need to conserve power. Marcus returned to his quarters and grabbed his emergency charger, then stopped at the equipment room for tools. Wire strippers, electrical tape, spare copper wire, soldering iron, everything he'd need to repair the antenna cable. The weather had deteriorated since morning, wind gusting to 35 knots, waves hitting the platform hard enough to make the whole structure shudder. The storm was arriving ahead of schedule. Marcus climbed the radio mast again. The wind tried to tear him off the ladder twice. His fingers were numb before he reached the cut cable. He worked fast, stripping insulation, splicing the copper cores together, wrapping everything in electrical tape. The repair took 20 minutes. Not pretty, but functional. Back in the control room, he powered up the radio and tried again. Platform Echo 7 to any vessel. Platform Echo 7 to Coast Guard. Emergency situation. Requesting immediate assistance. Over. Static. Then a voice broke through. Faint but clear. Echo 7, this is Coast Guard Station Aberdeen. We read you weak and broken. Say again your emergency. Over. Marcus's hand tightened on the handset. Coast Guard Echo 7. All crew evacuated under false pretenses. I'm alone on platform. Request investigation and immediate response. Over. Echo 7, confirm you said all crew evacuated. How many personnel? Over. 47 personnel evacuated at approximately 130 hours this morning via lifeboats. I was drugged and forced to assist. Evidence of illegal human experimentation on platform. Request law enforcement and medical response. Over. Long pause. Echo 7, stand by. Marcus waited. The radio crackled with interference from the storm. 2 minutes passed. 3. Then the Coast Guard returned. Echo 7, we're showing 4 lifeboats from your platform were recovered 6 hours ago by supply vessel Northern Star. All 47 crew members accounted for and safe. They reported platform emergency and equipment failure. No mention of drugging or experimentation. Can you clarify? Over. So the crew was safe. That was something. But they'd been told a cover story, probably dosed with the compound before evacuation to make them compliant and fuzzy on details. Coast Guard, the crew was exposed to a neurological compound that affects memory and compliance. They won't remember what actually happened. I have physical evidence, video footage, medical samples, documents proving illegal experimentation, request immediate extraction and investigation. Over. Another pause. Echo 7, we're experiencing severe weather. Current sea state prevents helicopter operations. Storm system expected to pass in approximately 12 to 16 hours. Can you maintain your position until weather clears? Over. Marcus looked at the storm forecast on the monitor. They were right. No helicopter could fly in these conditions. Coast Guard, affirmative. I can maintain position. But be advised, extraction helicopter from the company is scheduled to arrive in approximately 16 hours. They may attempt early retrieval despite weather conditions. Over. Copy that, Echo 7. We're logging your situation and evidence claims. Stand by for coordination with law enforcement. Do you have adequate supplies and is the platform structurally sound? Over. Marcus checked the monitors. Platform is stable. Supplies adequate for 72 hours minimum. All primary systems operational. Over. Understood, Echo 7. We'll coordinate response as soon as weather permits. Monitor this frequency. Coast Guard Aberdeen out. The radio went silent. Marcus set down the handset and exhaled. Help was coming, but not for 12 to 16 hours. And the company helicopter might arrive first, storm or no storm. If they were desperate enough to silence him, they might risk flying in marginal conditions. He needed to prepare for both scenarios. First priority, secure the evidence beyond any possibility of tampering. Marcus took the 3 USB drives and sealed each one in a separate waterproof bag. Drive 1 went into the forward ballast tank access panel, bolted behind a maintenance plate that required specialized tools to remove. Drive 2 went into the auxiliary generator housing, tucked behind the fuel filter assembly. Drive 3 stayed in his pocket. The sample vials were already secured against his chest. He added a second layer of waterproof protection and taped them down with medical adhesive. They weren't leaving his body unless someone cut them off. Second priority, document his situation in real time. Marcus returned to the control room and found the backup power logs. He wrote a detailed account of everything he'd discovered. Names, dates, file locations, evidence locations. He sealed it in an envelope and taped it to the underside of the main console where anyone investigating would eventually find it. Third priority, disable the modified air filtration system. If the compound was being distributed through the vents, he needed to stop breathing it. Marcus shut down the filtration in his quarters and the control room, then manually opened the external vents to bring in fresh North Sea air. Cold but clean. The platform shuddered as a large wave hit. Wind screamed around the superstructure. The storm was intensifying. Marcus checked the weather station. Winds steady at 40 knots, gusting to 55. Seas 18 feet in building. Barometric pressure dropping fast. His head started to clear. The constant, low-level fog he'd been living with for 3 months was lifting. He hadn't realized how much the compound had been affecting him until it started wearing off. His thoughts came faster, sharper. Connections he should have made weeks ago suddenly obvious. The memory gaps. The times he'd found himself in places without remembering how he got there. The way everyone on the platform had become increasingly passive, accepting orders without question. Rodriguez had mentioned it once. "We're all getting soft up here, Webb. Nobody argues anymore. Not like the old crews." Marcus had dismissed it as crew fatigue. Now he knew better. A sound cut through the storm noise. Different from the wind. Rhythmic, mechanical. He moved to the window and looked up. Helicopter. The helicopter fought the wind, buffeted sideways as it approached the platform. Sikorsky S-92. Corporate livery. Too early. They weren't supposed to arrive for another 14 hours. Someone had been monitoring the radio traffic. Someone knew he'd contacted the Coast Guard. Marcus grabbed the radio handset. "Coast Guard Aberdeen, this is Echo 7. Company helicopter attempting landing in storm conditions. Need you to log this. Over." No response. He tried again. Static. The antenna splice had failed or the storm was blocking the signal. He was on his own. The helicopter circled once, searchlight cutting through the rain and spray. It swept across the control room windows, blinding Marcus for 3 seconds. Then it moved to the helipad and began its descent. Dangerous in these conditions. The pilot was skilled or desperate. Probably both. Marcus ran through his options. He could barricade himself in the control room. They'd breach it eventually. He could hide in the lower levels. They'd search until they found him. He could try to negotiate. They'd sedate him and take everything. Or he could go on offense. He moved fast, grabbed his tools and headed for the helipad level. The helicopter was touching down when he reached the external door. 3 people emerged through the side door. 2 men in black tactical gear carrying equipment cases. 1 woman in a business suit holding a medical bag. Dr. Sarah Chen. He recognized her from the corporate memos. Marcus waited until they cleared the rotor wash and moved toward the interior doors. Then he stepped outside and ran low toward the helicopter. The pilot was still inside, shutting down systems. The rotor blades slowed but still turned. He reached the cargo door and yanked it open. The pilot turned, surprised. Marcus didn't give him time to react. He grabbed the fire extinguisher, mounted inside the cabin, and pulled the pin. White powder filled the cockpit. The pilot covered his face, coughing. Marcus climbed in, located the main battery switch, and killed the power. Everything went dark and silent except for the storm. "What the hell are you doing?" The pilot gasped, still coughing. "Making sure you can't leave without me." Marcus grabbed the battery cables and yanked them free, then jumped back out of the helicopter with them in his hands. He threw the cables over the helipad railing into the North Sea. The exterior door burst open. The 2 tactical guys rushed out. Marcus was already moving, heading for the internal corridors. He knew this platform better than anyone. Every passage, every maintenance tunnel, every hiding spot. He ducked into a side passage and climbed down the crew access ladder to D-deck. Footsteps echoed above him. They were spreading out, searching systematically. Professional. These weren't just corporate security, former military probably, hired specifically for this situation. Marcus reached the engine bay and moved to the far corner where the main power distribution panel sat behind a locked cage. He had the key. Inside were the circuit breakers for every system on the platform, including lighting. He found the breakers for A deck through C deck, everything above the waterline except essential navigation lights. His hand hovered over the switches. This would make things harder for everyone, including him. But it would level the playing field. Marcus threw the breakers. The platform above him went dark. Shouts echoed through the platform above. Marcus grabbed a flashlight from his tool belt and moved deeper into the engine bay. The emergency lighting kicked in after 30 seconds, dim red LEDs that created more shadows than illumination. Perfect. He reached the lower maintenance access and descended to E-deck, the lowest level above the waterline. Down here, the platform's groaning was constant, metal stressed by waves and wind. Water sloshed in the bilge pumps. The air smelled like oil and brine. Marcus knew they'd come for him eventually. 3 trained operatives against 1 maintenance tech. But he had advantages. He knew every crawl space, every access tunnel, every system on this platform. And he'd spent 14 years in situations where improvisation meant survival. The archive was 2 levels up. They'd search it eventually, find the empty filing cabinet drawers, realize he'd copied everything. But the USB drives were hidden, the samples were on his body, and the evidence was already transmitted to the Coast Guard. Even if they took him, the truth was out. Footsteps on metal. Close. Marcus clicked off his flashlight and moved by memory through the darkness. His hand found the maintenance tunnel entrance, a 2-foot diameter pipe that ran the length of the platform. He crawled inside and pulled the access cover closed behind him. The tunnel was tight. Marcus moved on his elbows, pulling himself forward through condensation and grime. Behind him, flashlight beams swept the corridor he'd just left. Voices called out systematic search patterns. They were good. He reached a junction and took the right branch, heading toward the platform's center. The tunnel opened into a small equipment room, housing the backup communications relay. Another one of his hidden spots. He emerged from the tunnel and caught his breath. The relay system was older technology, hardwired and independent from the main network. If the primary radio failed, this unit would automatically activate. Marcus powered it up and grabbed the emergency handset. Coast Guard Aberdeen, this is Echo 7. Company personnel on platform, 3 operators and medical staff. They've disabled helicopter. Situation escalating. Need immediate response despite weather. Over. Static. He adjusted the frequency and tried again. Any vessel, this is Platform Echo 7. Emergency. Immediate assistance required. Over. A voice crackled through. Weak but clear. Echo 7, this is Supply Vessel Northern Star. We're 20 miles east of your position. Weather is brutal, but we're monitoring. What's your situation? Over. Northern Star, 3 corporate operatives searching for me on platform. They're attempting to recover evidence of illegal experimentation. I'm evading. Coast Guard has been notified but can't respond until storm passes. Over. Echo 7, understood. We're logging everything. Can you maintain evasion? Over. Marcus heard footsteps again. Closer. They'd figured out the tunnel system. Northern Star, affirmative. Platform is my territory. They're just visitors. Echo 7 out. He killed the power and moved to the secondary exit, a narrow ladder leading up to C-deck maintenance storage. He climbed fast and emerged into a room full of spare parts and equipment, locked the hatch behind him. His phone buzzed. Low battery warning, 40% remaining. Marcus checked the photos he'd taken. Still there. Over 200 images of documents and evidence. He needed to upload them somewhere beyond the platform's local network. The platform had satellite internet for administrative use. Limited bandwidth but functional. The access point was in the control room, currently occupied by people who wanted to sedate him and erase everything he knew. Marcus thought through the problem. The control room was a kill zone, but the satellite system had remote access points throughout the platform for maintenance purposes. He'd installed 3 of them himself. 1 in the medical bay, 1 in the drilling operations room, 1 in the auxiliary equipment shelter on the exterior deck. The medical bay was too exposed. The drilling room was sealed off. That left the exterior shelter. He moved through the storage room to the external access door. Rain hammered against the metal. Wind howled through every gap and seam. Marcus zipped his jacket tight, pulled up his hood, and pushed outside. The storm hit him like a wall. Wind strong enough to lean into. Rain horizontal and stinging. He clipped his safety harness to the guideline and worked his way along the deck toward the auxiliary shelter. Waves crashed against the platform legs 60 feet below, sending spray high enough to soak him. The shelter was a small metal building welded to the deck, housing backup generators and redundant systems. Marcus unlocked it and slipped inside. Relative quiet. Just the storm muffled by metal walls and the hum of generators. The satellite access terminal sat on a maintenance desk. Marcus powered it on and connected his phone via USB cable. The system required login credentials. He used the maintenance override code he'd memorized years ago. The screen flickered and displayed the connection menu. Upload speed was slow. Satellite bandwidth in storm conditions reduced to a crawl. Marcus selected his photo folder and started the transfer to a cloud storage account. Estimated time, 40 minutes. He couldn't wait here that long. Too exposed. But disconnecting would cancel the upload. Marcus found a solution in the equipment locker. A long Ethernet cable used for remote diagnostics. He connected it to the terminal and ran it through the cable management tray toward the door. The cable stretched 70 feet. He could hide nearby and monitor the upload from a distance. The door burst open. One of the tactical operators stood in the entrance. Flashlight beam finding Marcus instantly. The man held a tranquilizer pistol. "Mr. Webb, you need to come with us. Dr. Chen wants to talk." Marcus's hand was already on the fire axe mounted on the wall for emergencies. He grabbed it and swung at the light fixture above him. Sparks flew. The room plunged into darkness except for the man's flashlight. Marcus dove right, rolled behind a generator. The tranquilizer dart hissed past where he'd been standing and hit the wall. He kicked the generator's emergency fuel shutoff. The unit died, taking half the shelter's lighting with it. The operative advanced carefully, weapon raised. "This doesn't have to be difficult. We just want to talk." "About how you turned 47 people into lab rats." Marcus grabbed a wrench and threw it across the room. It clanged off metal. The operative spun toward the sound. Marcus moved the opposite direction, circling toward the door. "The compound helps people, reduces anxiety, improves cooperation. You've experienced the benefits yourself." "I experienced being drugged and controlled." Marcus was at the door now. The upload status on his phone showed 23% complete. Not enough. He needed more time. The operative's radio crackled. "Chen to Porter, status. I've got him cornered in the auxiliary shelter. He's..." Marcus slammed the door open and ran. The wind caught it and smashed it against the shelter wall. He unclipped from the safety line and sprinted across the deck. Behind him, Porter shouted into his radio. "Subject running. North side heading toward the drilling platform." Marcus reached the drilling section and ducked behind a storage tank. His phone showed 31% uploaded. Still not enough. He needed to lead them away from the shelter while the transfer continued. The drilling platform section was a maze of equipment. Derricks, pipe racks, mud pumps, chemical tanks. Marcus knew every piece of it. He'd maintained the machinery for 3 months. Porter didn't. He moved through the shadows, staying low, found the catwalk leading to the drill floor, and climbed fast. From here, he could see most of the platform. 2 flashlight beams swept the lower deck. They were coordinating the search. Boxing him in, the drill floor stood 40 feet above the main deck, exposed on all sides. But it had something Marcus needed. The platform's emergency flare locker. 6 aerial flares designed to signal passing vessels in case of disaster. He opened the locker and grabbed 2 flares. Checked his phone. 47%. Getting there. But his battery was at 32%. The upload might drain it completely. Marcus heard footsteps on the catwalk. Someone climbing. He moved to the opposite side of the drill floor and waited. Porter emerged first, weapon raised. Then the second operative, a woman built like she'd spent years in special forces. "Mr. Webb, there's nowhere left to run." Porter's voice was calm, professional. "Dr. Chen just wants to ensure you're medically stable. The compound can have unpredictable effects. You need treatment. I need you people in prison." Marcus pulled the first flare, aimed skyward, and fired. The projectile shot up 300 feet and burst into brilliant red light. It swung beneath a parachute, illuminating the entire platform in crimson glow. "What are you doing?" The female operative moved toward him. Marcus fired the second flare, another red star burning bright against the storm clouds. "Signaling every vessel within 20 miles. Northern Star is monitoring. So is the Coast Guard. They know you're here. They know what you're doing." Porter and his partner exchanged looks. This was getting complicated. The longer it took to secure Marcus, the more witnesses knew about the situation. Dr. Chen's voice came over their radios. "Bring him in. Now. Use whatever means necessary." The female operative raised her tranquilizer pistol and fired. Marcus twisted sideways. The dart grazed his shoulder, tearing through his jacket but missing skin. He grabbed a pipe wrench from the tool rack and threw it. It hit her wrist. The pistol clattered to the deck. Porter rushed forward. Marcus ducked under his grab and drove his shoulder into the man's midsection. Porter grunted and stumbled back toward the edge of the drill floor. His foot caught on a pipe coupling. He fell backward over the safety railing. The man's hand shot out and caught the railing. He dangled 40 feet above the deck, wind tearing at him. "Help me!" Marcus looked down at him. "Where's Dr. Chen?" "You're offering me money to forget you turned me into a puppet." Marcus laughed, harsh and bitter. To forget you experimented on people who trusted this company. We're developing something revolutionary. Medical applications could help millions. PTSD treatment, addiction therapy. Chen's voice took on the tone of someone explaining to a child. Yes, our methods were unorthodox, but the potential benefits built on drugging people without consent, that's not science, that's abuse. His phone showed 94%. 1 minute left. Chen saw him check it and move fast. She lunged for the phone. Marcus jerked it away. Porter moved to cut him off. You think uploading files changes anything? Chen's composure cracked. We have lawyers, resources. We'll bury you in litigation. Maybe. Marcus watched the progress bar. 97%. But the files will be public. Journalists will dig. Your project dies either way. The phone chimed. Upload complete. 218 images backed up to the cloud. Marcus smiled. Done. Chen's hand clenched around the syringe. Then her shoulders sagged. Porter, secure him. Porter moved forward with handcuffs. Marcus didn't resist. The evidence was safe. The control room door burst open. Jenkins stood in the entrance, soaked and breathing hard. Dr. Chen, the drill site seal is failing. Pressure readings are spiking. Chen spun toward him. That's impossible. The storm surge is creating pressure differentials. If the seal breaks, the compound will leak directly into the North Sea. Jenkins held up a tablet. Environmental disaster. Chen grabbed the tablet. Her face went white. How long? 2 hours, maybe 3. Can we stabilize it? Emergency containment system. Manual operation from the drill platform control station. Jenkins looked at Marcus, which is currently offline. Everyone looked at Marcus. Uncuff me, Marcus said. I'll restore power and stabilize the seal. Chen hesitated. And then what? Then we prevent catastrophe. Your choice. Jenkins stepped forward. If that seal fails, contamination across hundreds of square miles. The pilot added quietly, he already uploaded everything. Chen nodded to Porter. Uncuff him. Marcus stood. Jenkins, show me the data. The graphs showed stress building. Every wave sent a spike through the system. Emergency bypass, Marcus said. Route pressure into auxiliary tanks. From here. No, I restore power, then manually activate the bypass. 2-person job. Jenkins nodded. I'll monitor. They reached the engine bay. Marcus threw breakers. Lights flickered on. He grabbed his tool belt and headed for the drill platform. Waves crashed over the lower deck. They reached the drilling control station. Marcus entered. Gauges showed red. Critical. Marcus began the activation sequence. Jenkins, you reading? Confirmed. Bypass coming online. Marcus opened the valves. Gauges began to drop. Auxiliary tanks filled. Pressure dropping 5 psi per minute. Keep it going. A massive wave hit. The pressure spiked. 1 tank indicator flashed red. Tank 3 exceeded capacity, Jenkins called. Shut it down, route to tank 4. The valve was stuck. Marcus pulled harder. Nothing. Frozen. Porter handed him a wrench. Marcus fitted it and pulled. The valve broke free. He closed it and opened tank 4. Pressure stabilized. Tank 3 held at 98%. Tank 4 filled. Primary seal pressure dropped to yellow. Better, Jenkins said. The radio crackled. Platform Echo 7, Coast Guard Station Aberdeen. Rescue helicopter staging. Extraction in 90 minutes. Over. Marcus grabbed the handset. Coast Guard Webb, I can maintain. 5 additional personnel on platform. Company team. Detained for questioning. Over. Copy Echo 7. We have your evidence. Investigators coordinating. Aberdeen out. Chen's voice on internal radio. The project is finished, but we can prevent criminal charges if you cooperate. Marcus pressed transmit. The only thing I'm cooperating with is the investigation. Webb out. He turned to Porter. You should make deals. First to cooperate gets lightest sentence. Porter set down his pistol. I was doing my job. Kidnapping and assault, but testify against Chen, maybe probation. 90 minutes passed. Marcus monitored systems. Storm weakened. Tanks held, seals stabilized. Helicopter rotors cut through wind. Coast Guard approaching. Marcus stepped outside and waved. The helicopter descended. 4 personnel jumped out. 1 approached. Marcus Webb. That's me. Petty Officer Martinez, we're extracting you and securing this platform. Where are the others? Control room. Dr. Chen, 2 contractors, 1 pilot, Dr. Jenkins. Detain the others. Martinez spoke into his radio. The second swimmer headed for the control room. The medic approached Marcus. We need to check you out. I'm fine. Sample vials in a pouch under my shirt. You'll want those. The medic removed the pouch and sealed the vials. Any symptoms? Clearing up. They dosed me last night. Marcus pointed to his neck. Made me evacuate the crew while drugged. Martinez photographed the injection site. FBI agents en route. Martinez's radio crackled. Control room secure. 4 in custody. Copy. He turned to Marcus. The USB drives, where? 3 copies. Forward ballast tank behind maintenance plate. Auxiliary generator behind fuel filter. 1 in my pocket. Marcus pulled out the drive. Martinez bagged it. We'll recover the others. The medic approached with Jenkins. Seals stable. Needs monitoring for 12 hours. Remotely? Martinez asked. Yes, from mainland operations. But someone needs to stay for manual adjustments. Martinez shook his head. Coast Guard personnel on site in 3 hours. They walked to the helipad. Chen, Porter, the operative, and pilot were being loaded under guard. Jenkins approached Marcus. I should have stopped this months ago. You stopped it today, Marcus said. I'll testify. Everything. Jenkins climbed into the helicopter. Marcus was last to board. The helicopter lifted. The platform shrank beneath them. Martinez handed Marcus coffee. You did good. Marcus wrapped his hands around the thermos. I just wanted the truth out. The helicopter touched down at Aberdeen 2 hours later. FBI agents were waiting. Marcus was taken for debriefing. The examination took 6 hours. Blood tests, neurological scans. They found traces of the compound, but levels were dropping. Effects would fade within 2 weeks. Monthly checkups for a year. Special Agent Rebecca Torres led the investigation. Mr. Webb, we've reviewed your files. The evidence is substantial, but we need your testimony. Are you willing? Absolutely. This is bigger than Echo 7. We found evidence the company tested at 4 other facilities. Over 200 workers exposed. Your evidence broke this open. 200 people. How many knew? At minimum, Dr. Chen, 3 executives and 12 facility managers. All being arrested today. What about my crew? Safe. Undergoing medical screening. Most show compound in their blood work. We're treating them as victims. Torres showed Marcus photographs. Recognize any? Marcus pointed to 3 faces. Them. I saw them in corporate memos. They authorized Project Meridian. They'll face conspiracy, assault, illegal experimentation, environmental crimes. 20 to 30 years if convicted. Marcus met her eyes. I'll testify. Tell everything. Torres nodded. The media is all over this. You'll get attention. We can provide protection. I don't need protection. I need them accountable. You'll get both. The trials took 18 months. Marcus testified for 3 days. The jury deliberated 6 hours before guilty verdicts. Chen received 15 years. The company paid $300 million in fines. All 47 crew members received compensation and medical monitoring. Project Meridian shut down permanently. Rodriguez called 3 months after the trial. Webb, how you holding up? Getting there. You. Better. The compound's out of my system. Memory's back. We're having a gathering next month. Aberdeen Pub. All 47 of us. We want you there. Marcus smiled. I'll be there. The gathering happened on a cold November night. Marcus walked into the pub and saw faces he'd last seen on Echo 7. They stood and applauded. Rodriguez grabbed him. You saved us, Webb. I just did what needed doing. They spent 4 hours together, sharing stories, talking about what came next. Most had found new jobs, some retired on the settlement. Jenkins was consulting with the EPA, helping identify other sites. Jenkins pulled Marcus aside. I'm helping them make sure it never happens again. Good, Marcus said. Jenkins raised his glass. To Marcus Webb, the man who wouldn't stay quiet. The whole pub raised their glasses. Marcus felt peace, not because the fight was over, but because it had mattered. Marcus Webb had spent 14 years fixing problems on oil rigs. In the end, he'd fixed the biggest problem of all. He walked home that night along the Aberdeen waterfront. The North Sea stretched dark beyond the harbor lights. Somewhere out there, platform Echo 7 still stood. Decommissioned now, sealed, a monument to what happens when profit matters more than people. Marcus stopped at the water's edge and looked out. 14 years he'd worked rigs like Echo 7, fixed their systems, kept them running. He'd always believed the work mattered, that the oil fed the world, that the companies took care of their people. He'd been wrong about that last part, but he'd been right about one thing. When you see something wrong, you fix it, even if fixing it costs you everything. Even if it means fighting the people who sign your paychecks. Even if it means standing alone on an empty platform 120 miles from shore, with nothing but the truth and the will to survive. Marcus Webb never worked an oil rig again. Didn't need to. The settlement gave him enough to live comfortably. But more than that, he'd found a new purpose. He consulted with worker advocacy groups, testified before congressional committees about corporate malfeasance, helped draft new regulations requiring informed consent for any workplace chemical exposure. He'd become the voice for people who couldn't speak up, and he'd done it by refusing to forget what they'd tried to make him forget. If this story meant something to you, drop a comment and share it. It helps the next person find their way here.